Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's session, The Increasing Importance of Data in the COVID Era. My name is Tom Trainer. I'm the CMO at Treasure Data, and we serve over 400 customers globally with our enterprise customer data platform. I'm excited to introduce today's presenter, Don Peppers. So Don Peppers is a best-selling author, blogger, business strategy, and widely acclaimed keynote speaker who has traveled to over 40 countries talking about customer and member experience. His latest book, Customer Experience, What, How, and Why Now, provides insights and how-to recommendations for building and maintaining a truly customer-centric business. So we have some quick housekeeping. So first of all, there will be an on-demand version of this webinar, and it'll be available immediately after the presentation. And feel free to click and download the attachments you see below your screen. And lastly, we'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions during or after today's session, please submit them below, and we'll do our best to answer them. So Don, take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Tom. It's a delightful introduction. I appreciate it, and I'm going to talk about the increasing importance of data, particularly customer data, and in the COVID era, it's become even more important. This kind of customer data. Let me start with a statistic. This is the Purchasing Managers Index from the United States. It shows economic activity, or actually prospective economic activity as measured by purchase managers. And you can see here the COVID crisis hit. But as a famous gentleman, Albert Einstein, once said, in the midst of crisis lies great opportunity. And in fact, we can see the same kind of opportunity for customer data amid the COVID crisis. Let me show you another graph. This is the US growth rate in e-commerce. Look at that. And according to McKinsey, we've had, in this COVID opportunity, we've had 10 years of e-commerce penetration in 3 months. That's an amazing opportunity. Other surveys show that 97% of executives say that the pandemic sped up their digital transformations, and 95% are searching for new ways to engage with customers individually, and 79% have increased their budgets for digital transformation. All this is due to the COVID crisis, and it doesn't even take into account the fact that there's going to be a massive proliferation of customer data due to the 5G rollout and the looming explosion in Internet of Things, IoT. I want to go back to the beginning, though, and talk about the nature of competition and the role that marketing plays in competition. There are two things that any business has to do to be able to compete with other businesses. It has to be able to satisfy some need, and it has to have a customer who wants to have that need satisfied, right? If it can satisfy a customer's need, then it can have a business. Well, if we put these two things on a two-dimensional chart, traditional marketing, we'll call it 20th century marketing, focused on products, okay? And a product satisfied a particular customer need. And the goal was to try to find as many customers as possible who wanted to have that need satisfied by the product. And the width of that horizontal bar, your market share, that was kind of your definition of success. But it was very product-centric, based on one product at a time. In the 21st century, we have customer-centric marketing. And fundamentally, it proceeds against the competitive space in a different dimension. Customer-centric 21st century marketing focuses on one customer at a time. And through interacting with that customer constantly and being in touch with that customer, it tries to satisfy as many of that customer's needs as possible. And the height of that bar is your share of customer. Now, you've probably heard the term share of customer in the past, but what I'm talking about here with share of customer is not what your wallet share or what share of sales you. What I'm talking about is how big is your bar on the graph of customer needs? What portion of the customer's needs are you satisfying? What element do you play in that customer's life? And so, do you sell more products over time? Do you sell more products to meet a variety of different needs? Do you sell more products to their friends and families and colleagues at work, and so forth. If you're a product-centric marketer in the 20th century, then you focus on your product, one product at a time. You try to develop a unique selling proposition. You focus on each product's attributes and benefits, and if you don't have a particular attribute or benefit, then you try to make up for it with the brand, some sort of symbol, and brands create trust and so on. That's 20th century marketing. In the 21st century, to focus on one customer at a time, you have to focus on each customer's individual experience with the brand, okay? The individual experience the customer has. Now, measuring the quality of a customer experience is very important in the customer-centric world. And most businesses use VOC surveys, voice of customer surveys. They're excellent for complaint discovery. They can immediately, one of the reasons you get a survey after every transaction, sometimes annoyingly frequently you get a survey, is because if you were upset with a transaction or you had a complaint, you would exercise your right to tell them in a survey, more likely, okay? Prior to that kind of interactivity, only 1 out of 10 customers who ever had a complaint actually complained to the company. So a VOC survey is what I call a complaint discovery tool. It's like putting the suggestion box right in front of the customer as they're completing the transaction. And it's really good for capturing the quality of individual interactions you have with customers. However, when you try to use VOC surveys to measure the overall quality of your customer experience, they got to be both statistically valid and objectively normalized. You know that only a percent or two of customers you survey, if you do a universal survey, are going to answer the survey, right? So you use that to discover complaints, but you can't really project that to the, it's sample bias, right? And the other thing is that people, their moods, their opinions, while there's no better authority for the quality of a customer experience than the customer himself or herself, the fact is people have moods and tempers, and they could have had a bad day or a good day. So you have to normalize the subjective opinions of customers if you're going to take a broad survey of customer experience using VOC surveys. This is because of behavioral economics. Daniel Kahneman and the late Amos Tversky really invented the field of behavioral economics. And one of the theses of behavioral economics was what they called prospect theory, which had to do with the often irrational behaviors people exhibited when they were making investments and spending money, all right? And there were 3 fundamental principles that underlay prospect theory and behavioral economics. One, all change is relative. When you consider the impact of a change on you, it's relative to where you were before and so forth and what you're doing. Sensitivity diminishes with scale, and losses are averted more than gains are sought. Let me give you an example of how behavioral economics works. Let's suppose we have 2 people who are each worth $1 million today. Now, a rational, classical microeconomist would say these 2 people must be equally happy because they have the same resources, they have the same utility in the economy. So clearly, they're equally happy. But suppose I told you that yesterday or last month, Amy was worth only $500,000, and today she's worth $1 million. While last month, Bob, he was worth $2 million, and this month he's only worth $1 million. Now, would you say they're equally happy? Of course not, right? Of course not. They're human beings. They're not equally happy. Well, the same kind of subjectivity bias will infuse your VOC survey. When you ask a customer, how satisfied are you with their brand, okay? The answer is relative to what? My life in general? How satisfied should I be? That's behavioral economics. You might think I'm going too far here to talk about the data, but let me give you a real-world example of when this kind of failure to take this subjectivity into account cost some senior executives in a big telecom firm their bonuses one year. These senior executives were so focused on improving the quality of the customer experience that they did a strategic NPS measurement every month. They randomly called 400 customers and asked them the NPS question on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely would you be to recommend our brand, okay? And that's the average of those 400 randomly chosen customers was their strategic NPS score. Now, 400 is a really good sample, so it's statistically valid, but they didn't subjectively normalize their scores, and they lost their bonus one year because their NPS score plummeted. And here, let me show you a graph. This is I reconstructed their graph and I put some lines on it to sort of show the ups and downs. And it's drawn to scale, but the numbers are obscured on this graph to protect the identity of the company. They lost their bonuses toward the end of 2013, when you can see that their NPS score, their strategic NPS scores, fell off the cliff. And so they came to me and they wanted to know what I could tell them to help them improve their customer experience so they didn't lose their bonuses the next time, okay? They didn't want to lose their bonuses again. They want to keep, obviously their customer experience had fallen off somehow. So how do they improve that customer experience? The first question I asked them was, well, what did your competitors' NPS scores do during this period? And they looked at me like I was from the moon. And they said, what? Well, we don't measure our competitors. We're interested in our NPS score. Why would we measure our competitors' NPS score? And I said, well, because, customer opinion is sort of relative to what else is going on in their life. So I tell you what, let's go to the Ministry of Commerce and let's pull up consumer confidence for this country and see what it looks like. I'm going to show you another graph. This is the consumer confidence graph for this country during the same period. See what I'm looking at here? I mean, if anything, these guys should have had their bonuses increased because their NPS score didn't fall off nearly the same cliff that consumer confidence fell off at the end of 2013. So I'm just trying to illustrate the fact that that this kind of information that you interrogate a customer for, when you interact with a customer and try to get that opinion back, it's almost like the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. You can't touch the customer without changing the customer in a sense. And there are two kinds of data that are really useful in managing and improving the customer experience. One is interactive data, which is subjective, right? VOC surveys, attitudinal market surveys, and so forth. That's all subjective. And in order to proceed with it, you've got to not just make sure that it's statistically valid, but also normalized for subjective opinions, because it's subjective. But there's also observational data. This is stuff that you can just look at. Like, you have product performance and customer behaviors that are directly seen. Product or service defects identified, customer behaviors observed, social media behaviors tracked. Your click-through rate is observational. It's not, even though the customer is interacting with you, you're just observing it. It's like observing customers in the wild. It's objective as a result. You're looking at the real world. You're not biasing it by the act of observing it. Now, when you talk about the customer experience and you want to improve the quality, you needed to define it first. And the way I define customer experience in my book is the totality of a customer's individual interactions with a brand over time. Now, each of those words is important. Customer, and when I talk about customer, I'm talking about not just current, but also prospective customers. And individual interactions occur both face-to-face and via interactive media with a brand. Interactions that a customer has about a brand are not actually part of the customer experience. They may be talking about the customer experience in a positive or negative way, but they're not part of the customer experience. Brand, when I say brand, I'm talking about all the selling entities, not just the company and the brand itself, but their distributors, their dealers, their, sales clerks, partners, anyone who has a role to play in the value chain. And over time, it recognizes the fact that customer relationships are ongoing. How you treat a customer today will have an effect on that customer's patronage tomorrow. Because unlike products, customers have memories. A customer creates two kinds of value with a company, and this over time tries to capture this aspect, because he might, if you give him a really good experience, he might buy more today, or he might change his intent to buy in the future, right? So changing the customer's experience today improves value in the future if you improve the customer experience, and it probably destroys value in the future if you degrade the customer experience in some way. But totality of interactions is key. And in the crisis, in the COVID crisis, we've had a remarkable increase in e-commerce interactions, but they're also accompanied by many other types of interactions from customers, from phone calls to email and app installations, and Telegram and Facebook and Signal Messenger, SMS messaging, IVR, all these, WhatsApp, anything. All these interactions have been magnified. The volume of them and the variety of them have been magnified by this opportunity, the COVID opportunity. So what you need, fundamentally, is a customer data platform that can quickly and easily assimilate this vast array of new customer behavioral data, some of which is structured, some isn't structured. It's a vast morass of data that that you need to assimilate, and you're going to need that CDP. You know why? Because it's not going away. It's not going away. Can you imagine a future where some people really like to work at home? I don't have to take a commute. I can watch out for the kid. You know, I don't. Here's the point I'm going to make. We're never going to get the genie back in the bottle, okay? The COVID genie is out of the bottle. This rapid increase in e-commerce and rapid increase in customer interactions, they're not going away. And that's why you need a good customer data platform. Over to you, Tom.
Thanks, Don. If we could go to the next slide. It's really, what you said was really educational, and I've even seen surveys that talked about how people are not planning on changing back their behavior, these behaviors that they've started to do during this time. And as you mentioned, your understanding of customers comes from how they engage with all the different touch points with your brand. And that's the observational data, the more objective data that you mentioned earlier. So a customer data platform, as shown here, is the technology that sits at the center of your tech stack and makes the customer data useful across all of the tools. So next slide. So using a CDP allows your marketing, your IT team, your data scientist team, as well as other teams, it allows them to use that data to create that golden customer profile and to be able to activate the insights for marketing or for product or sales or customer support teams. So next slide. So Treasure Data is a leading enterprise CDP, and we have over 400 customers globally. And we help companies manage millions or billions of customer signals at scale. And we make it easy to manage customer data securely and provide significant return on investment by reducing wasted spend on duplicate profiles and by increasing effectiveness with more targeted marketing and sales efforts. The Treasure Data CDP allows companies to tap into advanced AI and machine learning to identify the top prospects, next best actions, best channels to communicate with people in, recommended content, cross-sell or upsell opportunities, and a lot more. So learn more or schedule a demo at treasuredata.com. And thank you, Don, for that really compelling and interesting presentation. It makes a lot of sense.
Well, thank you, Tom. Thanks for having me.
So right now we'll take questions from the audience. And what we have here is you talked about two kinds of data needed to monitor the quality of a good customer experience you deliver. But what, in your view, constitutes a good customer experience?
Well, that's a good question. And in my view, a good customer experience has two qualities, basically. It is frictionless first, okay? It solves the problem or meets the need that the customer has without erecting any obstacles in front of the customer. Because there's a lot of research that shows that customer satisfaction doesn't really make customers loyal. It's customer dissatisfaction that makes them disloyal. And so the first task in managing a customer experience is to take all the friction out, make the experience reliable for the product, valuable, it's a great value proposition, relevant to the customer. Don't forget what the customer's already told you, and don't try to sell men, women's clothing or anything else, that kind of thing. And trustable, always acting in the customer's interest, so the customer doesn't have to count their change or check what they're paying and so forth. That all makes it more frictionless. Once you've made it frictionless, then you can begin to engage the customer emotionally. Maybe it's a little bit of entertainment. If you've ever been on a Southwest Airlines flight, for example, that's one of the ways they engage their customers. They let the flight attendants, run wild with jokes and skits and stories and so forth. Or maybe it's better information and more knowledge, and you make the customer more. You impart your category knowledge and engage the customer in intellectual pursuit to try to figure out a better way to meet their need or solve their problem, using your product and relevant products. So fundamentally, frictionless first, and then delight. First, no friction, then you can delight the customer. That's what I call a good customer experience.
Yeah, and it sounds like that frictionless or seamless customer experience requires a similar or the same understanding of where the customer is at with that company along every touch point. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. In fact, one of the bedrock principles in frictionless experience is relevant. Let me just give you an example. You've heard the term omni-channel. Everybody says, I'm omni-channel. Yeah, my customers can talk to me any way they want, right?
Yep.
No, what a myth that is. So many companies are saying it, they don't deserve to say it. Think about, you're watching this webinar, think about the last time you personally had to go online. You had a problem with some product or some service. What's the first thing you did? Well, you first went online to try to figure out how to solve the problem. You went to the company's website and you explored this aspect of it and this aspect. You clicked here, you clicked there. Maybe you spent 30 minutes on the website trying to figure out how to solve your problem without having to call somebody, but you couldn't do it. So in the end, you had to call them.
Right.
What's the first thing you had to say once they got you on the phone? You had to tell them what your problem was. You just spent a half an hour on that company's website and they didn't have a clue, right? They're not omni-channel at all. And there are so many technologies available to sort of preserve the data from the click stream and take it into the phone call. You could have click to chat if you're in an app. You could have temporary phone numbers that, so when I call the phone number, that phone number that I'm calling is unique to my website visit. You can have call me buttons. That's what Amazon does. There are many different technologies out there to do it. Companies don't do it because I don't know why. Maybe they think it's, why should they worry about their own, the customer wasting their customer's time? It doesn't cost them anything to waste their customer's time. Well, that's where they're wrong. It does cost them something because in the long term, the customer is going to become less loyal. So you want to save your customer's time and make things frictionless, and you have to use data to do that.
Well, a lot of times I have to tell them first who I am. And there is one company in particular that actually usually says, oh, I see you're logged on. So actually,
yeah, right.
Kudos to that company.
Yeah.
So another question is, you talked about some of the problems with the subjectivity of direct feedback from customers. Are there any problems we should look out for in using observational data? Good question.
Sure. Well, the first is, can you rely on the data statistically? And I urge you to get a data scientist or a data analyst involved in that who can actually do statistical math. You don't need to know any math to know that you need a reasonably large number in your sample to be confident. And the more decimals you want to highlight in your percentages, the larger that number needs to be. You can't take a survey of 100 customers and then be confident that 36% of your customers want X, Y, Z. Because it's going to be a lot of variety. So statistical significance is one hazard that needs to be carefully navigated if you're looking at these massive troves of data. Another difficulty with objective data is the whole role of causal analysis. You've heard the saying that correlation is not causation, right? It means just because people with large families tend to buy more cornflakes doesn't mean that if you sell them cornflakes, they're going to have larger families, right? It actually means probably the reverse. But the truth is that when the rooster crows, the sun comes up. It doesn't cause the sun to come up. And so the order of time and so forth, you have to look for the causal relation. Now, in the last 20 years or so, there's been a terrific development of what's called causal analysis in statistics. And we're talking about causal diagrams, and we're talking about different kinds of tests. We're talking about using different numbers to different kinds of equations, drawing causal diagrams. And we've made a lot of progress there. But again, if you don't want to learn the mathematics, then get yourself a data scientist and make sure that just because your NPS is higher it doesn't mean that your customer experience is better. You might have different customers, or any number of other sort of confounding factors might go into it. And one more thing, and that is that even with objective data, as with subjective data, but even with objective data, there's still something that operates called Goodhart's law. Whenever you take a metric and turn it into any kind of an incentive, it ceases to be a valid metric. That's Goodhart's law. And the reason for that is, if the people who are measuring your metric have an incentive for that metric to be one way or the other, they're going to bend over backwards to fulfill that incentive. And it's not necessarily cheating. It could be just the way they compile the information, or the way they present it. You see it all the time in newspaper stories and magazine stories. And my favorite are all these companies that run what are fundamentally bogus surveys, and they report 96% of people, or 35% of people, or 62.4% of people say this. You got to take that with a grain of salt, even with objective metrics.
Okay, thank you. That's interesting. And there's one more here. It's about the IoT space. What sorts of customer data will likely be generated in a few years by more robust Internet of Things?
Well, I think we're navigating to a time when even the most mundane consumer products are going to have connections to the web. And right now, when you order something from some online e-commerce vendor, you'll get updates from UPS. The product was here, or product, you'll get updates from Amazon on when they've delivered the product. Soon, with IoT, the product will notify yourself, hey, I'm outside your door now, right? The product will say, I'm here, pick me up, I'm here. And I think also you need to think of how that transforms the task that a company now has to engage in to help manage its customer experience. Because now you're going to have continuous feedback on the quality of the customer experience. And you could think of IoT products really as services. And just in the way that software as a service created the customer success movement, I think products as a service are going to create consumer success disciplines, okay? How do we make sure that our customer doesn't just buy our product, but gets the most efficient use out of it? And so they'll buy another one, they'll buy again, and they'll buy again. And that kind of management, that's going to create a tremendous amount of data. And guess what? IoT data is observational data. It's not subjective. It's not based on opinion. It's not based on what somebody thought they knew. It's based on the physical facts. And so it's hard, rock hard data, but there's going to be a heck of a lot of it. Heck of a lot.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And even some of our customers today are using product data and even running like A/B tests in their products,
yes,
as opposed to in marketing. So that's great.
Would not be surprising at all. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Don. That's it for the questions. Thank you so much for the really educational presentation. And just to remind you to visit the Bright Talk channel where you can view on-demand upcoming webinars. And thanks again, Don.
Thanks, Tom. See you.
Okay, bye, everybody.